All right, we just about ready? All right, I hear that.
Hello, everybody. All right, getting ready to start the next panel here. But before we do that, I had somebody who came to this year's convention and he brought me a little present. And for those of you who watched the stream, and Jack, you're going to get a big kick out of this as well. I'd like to bring Buckaroo Bonsai up here. Because Buckaroo Bonsai was the proud winner of one of the best prizes we ever gave away on our stream. And what Buckaroo Bonsai is doing is he's returning that prize to me today so that I can bring it to you all again. And would you please show them what that is? That is the partially used Rolls electrical tape that he won in a raffle, and now he's going to allow us to give it away again to some lucky viewer out there. So for anybody who wanted it originally, he's got the original bragging rights, but yeah, you all get a chance again. So thank you guys.
Laz, are the chip clips going to be returnable?
Stop it.
Chip clips?
Stop it.
Well, no, they can ask for a personal demonstration. I don't know.
No. Gross. Stop it.
And Taser, there's a box on your table there that I think is the right box for you. It's an R, and the higher up the letter series you go, the cooler the box is. I think that's the right one. So R is pretty far up there.
Cool, right?
All right, you guys about ready to get started talking about some combat. As always, we are completely unprepared, as we usually are for these stream things. But I think we've always got enough stuff to talk about things for days and days. And let's see. And I heard some people went to Macaroni Grill, which then I heard there's Italian food coming later. So you had Italian food yesterday, Italian food for lunch, and you're having Italian food for dinner.
I had me a Texas steak. It was delicious.
I guess on the positive side, you guys were back on time when we were, so not a bad decision. So this is we're doing combat PvP PVE stuff here. So the last 12-month highlights, hundreds of balance and bug fixes. For of course those out there who want to take a little different spin on it, hundreds of nerfs, hundreds, and bug fixes which cause nerfs. That's the other one. That seems to be the more common one. So yeah, I think you guys know this is one we've talked about a number of times, and I know when we went out on the boat, it's one big one we talked about is just tons and tons of balance. For those who haven't really thought about it, there's a lot of challenges with the system we have. In terms of you can do anything you want to with it, you can build any class you want to with it, and there's just a million different ways you can build out and strategies where you can have. And the result of that is it makes for a system that is really hard to balance and get perfectly right. I think we're getting closer, but it's also one of those things, it's a little bit of a moving target because it's new items go into the game, new creatures go into the game, new skills go into the game, you know it upsets the balance quite a bit. But, how many people PvP?
Three of us.
What was the question?
PvP? How many people PvP?
Can I read it halfway? Stop it.
All right. Well, anyways, that's one of the things that is also, I think you guys know that I pay close attention to that. That I try to make sure when I make changes, I'm not just looking at the PvE or PvE side of things. I try to make sure I pay attention to the PvP side of things too. As far as how I balance things, again, I've mentioned this and I've talked about it lots. But some of it is actually looking at the metrics, seeing what skills are being used, looking for the the top 1%, and then also looking at the bottom 50%, what skills don't get used, because it's pretty steep fallout once you get through the top 50 skills or whatever. But again, that's one of the key things I look at is see if people are not using the skill why. Is it just the type of skill it is? It doesn't have to use much. But also trying to pay attention to, sometimes like things like distract gets used a lot. Yeah, I know, right? But it's only because they're trying to level up distract so they can buy distract. So that's, and a lot of players do that, early on. So, but anyways, trying to pay attention to those types of distorted pieces of data. But the main thing I do for PvE and PvP balance is, well, some is playing the test down against creatures, but of course, as is no secret, I suck compared to you guys in terms of playing stuff, which is why I do a lot of talking to you guys on stream and trying to talk in chat, trying to talk and other stuff and listen to you guys on things. And also, fortunately, I have over here, we haven't done our introductions yet, but this is Bzus. We introduced ourselves yesterday, so I think most people got to meet everybody. And List, also known as Travis. And Travis on the team, far more than anybody else, is the guy who actually plays and talks to people and does stuff and knows how to actually play. Still not gonna say top up there. What do you rank? You've been to PvP tournaments lately? You
I've been
didn't
so
bother
far
trying?
out of it. I fought somebody the other day. I've been doing music and housing for so long that however bad I was before, I'm that much more behind with that.
All right, well, again, that's part of why we have a lot of people who try to encourage us to play more, play your own game, and we do play what we can. Yeah, I know, I see you back there, man. But you know, there's only so many hours in a day, and that's also, even if I play 24/7, there's so many players that have a 5,000, 10,000 hour head start over me in terms of developing skills. You guys need me talking to people and trying to be a good judge of who I can trust and who to listen to, and then actually being the guy who goes and tries to implement that stuff. Let's see, so we got over 20 new skills and spells over the last year, so that's kind of, I think I'm not supposed to talk about future stuff yet, but again, there's going to be a lot more stuff that's coming in there. There's a few things that are still busted in a few skills. I think the sun skills that just went in have been fairly well received. I see them getting used a lot, but I'm not sure if it's out of curiosity more than anything else, because my belief is, at least the solar flare is a little weak, on the weak side of things. But again, this weak, that's the consensus.
Weak sauce. For the reagents it uses, it's definitely weak.
Yeah. For the bloom that causes and blinds you, that it's definitely weak. Yeah, so that's one of those things, again, this has kind of been. Go ahead.
I love the warp sound,
Oh.
especially the rainbow thing. I love the sound.
Yeah, you like those? I added those.
Yeah. Not sound.
Those who watched the stream last night, you got to hear my sound effects falling.
Oh yeah.
Those were actually existing sounds that someone else had done that I did the hookup for.
Yeah.
Yeah, looking at new skills, that's one of the things I've been trying to do over the past year. Is when I add things or when I make tweaks to things. So there used to be a lot of really big, what I call pendulum swings, that were extremely infuriating. I've been trying to do better on that, which means when I'm adding a new skill to the game, it is far better in terms of response from you guys. If it's underpowered, you're just like, okay, who cares? I'll try that and I won't use it. If it's way overpowered, then everybody gets all the obsidian scrolls, fun learning, dumps everything, then goes and learns it and goes out and destroys everything over and over again, and then I have to fix it. And then, of course, people scream and make posts in the forums about why they quit the game. So, far more than I have in the past and continuing forward, I'm trying to make sure when I'm making tweaks, if I'm adding new skills, I'm making sure they are, my target is below what I think is good. So that's kind of where that solar flare is. That'll get a pickup, that'll get a little bit better going forward. And that'll kind of be what we see going forward. As I've mentioned, I'm planning on adding 1 to 2 skills per tree for episode 2. That'll be high tier stuff, and that's kind of what you can expect for those. So just know that, be patient when they go in and know that they're there, and we'll see how they do. But I'm going to try to make sure if I'm aiming for a spot, I'm aiming low on the power for them. Again, though, that one is one that is kind of just a damage spell, which can be fairly easy to calculate the DPS. I can get a pretty good shot on those and kind of know what to target for those. Just doing different types of tests and seeing the DPS on these things. But that is also when you start getting into spells. Not all spells are just like damage and a little variation. A lot of times in spells, it's like a buff or a haste or whatever other type of special effect or defensive things, and those get a lot harder to calculate what is balanced on those things. Like Shield of Air is one of those. They'll give us an example. That's one that I think people know for a long time it was ridiculously unbalanced. It's probably still a little bit unbalanced. Death Shield is the other one that PvE people notice is unbalanced. I see you guys all using it, but in the PvP world, it's historically unbalanced in terms of how it handles things, the basics and stuff. And that's another big thing I'm trying to watch for is a lot of those skills are the same formulas that they started off with when they were created 5 years ago or whatever. And at that time there were still some things that were linear. And if I had a whiteboard, I could go over the math for it, but there's some things that are linear, which is not good because again, we really want them to be, fast and then get curve off a little, taper off and kind of head a plane out, so you get a little bit of gain as you level up if you want too much. And the linear ones are not so much, and the biggest problem ones are the ones that are 1 minus a linear number. And that's kind of what happens with the death shield and the air shield, is the power, is 1 minus, actually it's 1 divided by 1 minus a linear number. So rather than it being like, okay, you went from 0.8 to 0.9, in some things that'd be 10% better, but if you're doing 1 divided by 1 minus 0.8, 0.9, the difference between that is 100% power increase, because it's an approaching 0 type problem, it's kind of thing, which really means when you're approaching 0 and it's 1 divided by approaching 0, you're approaching infinity. So there's kind of some of those that are broken in that they're linear in terms of what they give. That's kind of the problem that we have with some of the passive skills as well. That a lot of those give linear boosts. I had somebody saying move stuff more off gear, more onto passive skills. And that's kind of what's fear with those. Is a lot of those right now, at least, are linear in terms of what they give. You get 50 points in it, that equals 50 strength. You get 100, that equals 100 strength. So, and then they also factor in a lot of different ways. The big thing with the passive skills is also, besides a lot of them being set up linear right now, is you always have them, they're always there. So that's one of those that, in terms of people complaining about grinding, people complaining about grinding, that's one that actually will contribute to that grinding, because people, you can always have more passives, and and it helps, and especially if it's always on and it's linear, then there's always reason to grind, and you're always going to feel like you're behind because that guy's doing a little more grinding. But anyways, just keep those are some things I think a lot of people don't think about, is the passives don't take gut slots, and they always have power in all trees. So that's when I act like I'm a little bit not a fan of passives, that's part of why. Question?
Yeah.
Go give him a microphone, don't talk yet. Okay.
Yeah. So one thing that would be, I think, helpful when you innovate and balance and those sorts of things is to potentially look at the mid-level player's effect versus somebody that's level 120 or above or whatever, because it's a big difference. So what was OP at level 120 or above really wasn't for somebody that was level 80.
Yeah, and that's it's not the best option in the world, but usually what I'll do is when I have a skill like that, I kind of have some targets that I know I want. At level 40, I know what I want to be at level 80. The things I look at are level 40, which is really, I'm very new, and then level 80, and then level 100, and then level 120. And I try to make sure things don't break at those levels. A lot of the things that are, again, fairly broken are things that just haven't been touched in a long time, like Death Shield and like Shield of Air, where they're kind of the approaching infinity almost power. The Death Shield is really, for those who don't know, it's got the double problem that basically it not only stops the damage, but it also heals you damage. So you get 40%, you're really getting 80% stopping. So it's crazy. If you recall, there was actually a time when you could have a death shield and an air shield up at the same time. Fortunately, players weren't very high level at that time, but that was one of those crazy count things. Yes, I do try and test it at those levels, but it's a lot of times it's not accurate, because of course I test things at like 120 skill level, and I'm like, okay, got it. I think that feels fair. You guys test it up to 120 skill level, 130 skill level. Then you have gear that you have exactly engineered to perfectly max out that stuff. So it's really tough and coming up with all those examples, and a lot of times that's one of those things where it takes a lot of time for you guys to get there. Like there's a lot of skills that became OP over time, even though the skill itself didn't change. And it's just because you guys figured out those guys were figuring out which ones are approaching infinity type stuff. Suddenly the people are getting Shield of Air that stops, you know, with a 8-to-1 or 9-to-1 ratio, so every 9 points of damage takes off 1 focus. So, again, but we are trying to fix some of those things. Death Shield will be getting a nerf next release. The current thing that I have that I did not submit because I knew it would result in riots that would be piled on top of other riots was the making it so it doesn't stop the damage, it only transfers. Basically, it cuts the power of it in half. So it'll do one of the 2 things, but it won't do the other of the 2 things because right now it mitigates and drains. It'll just drain in the future.
And it's, you know, the other part of it is, you know, I've just quit Net Chaos. Yeah. So in advance of being nerfed.
Wait,
which is a good
standing.
thing. But what I found, unfortunately, is that it is so limiting. You know, it's great if you're a PvP character and that build on the highest level character, I was just pretty much all PvP. But it's horrible in PvE, and you can't group with anybody because nobody can deal with you. And your dungeons have so much undead in it, and you don't get any heal. So so it's a very limiting factor.
Yeah. And that's one of those things, I mean, that brings up another thing. You guys all know you can level up all the skills and, you know, for what it costs to get a skill to like 130, which I know you guys do a lot of, you can get practically every skill in the game up to, you know, 90 or so, and you guys can diversify and build different. That's one of those psychology things we continue to learn the hard way, which is, you know, we think of that as like it's flexible. Really, what you guys always want to do is, if I get 3% better DPS or, you know, slightly better performance, if I ignore all that other crap and just put on this, and that's a lot of what you guys do. So it's, you guys don't diversify, because my dream is, you know, in my head when I think about these design things and talking out with people, and, you know, we talk about it in design meetings and stuff, is well, they'll have multiple builds, but if you get into a situation where, you know, they don't need a death mage, you're going to switch over and play the, you know, the earth tank guy because you've got tons of skills. But that's not how it works. You guys usually get exactly the skills you want. And that's another one of those things I've looked for in the past that I need to go take another pull on those also in terms of finding broken skills, which reminds me is the looking for skills where people only have 1 skill in a skill tree that's over 40. And that's, again, it's like the only reason they get the skill tree is because they want to get that 1 skill. And if they have the other skills that like level up to 80 or something like that, it's purely for the attunement factor, but they don't actually use it. So, but yeah, I get that. I wish people would diversify more, but I also hate telling them how to play. But it's also one of those things like, do we really go and make death magic affect undead just because people want to play as a pure death mage and tell them, you know, I think there's just some builds where if you're going to be that specialized, you've got to have some weaknesses. Kind of by design. Same thing like a fire mage or something. If you're going up against fire dragons, because guess what? They're going to have much better resistances going forward with specific types of dragons. And some of that is to, you know, it's just the balance thing. Yeah, you're more powerful that way, but you're going to have some weaknesses. You need those weaknesses, but it also, again, in my dream, in my head, when we think about these, or when I think about these things, it also encourages grouping. To have those type of things, to have weaknesses, because like if the whole dungeon's undead, okay, that's kind of crappy, but there's only a few places where the whole dungeons are undead. Yeah, I know there's some places that people like going, but usually we have a mix of stuff in there.
The last 2 dungeons I made had a lot of undead, so I promise the next one will be like Koleski or what do you call them? Obsidians.
Just fill it with archers and escape.
It might help if in PVE, their specialty could heal the players in your group or something, because that's I mean, you get a death sentence.
Yeah, and that's by design. That's one of the things I was actually looking at, is reducing how much that did, because there's some ways you can really get some broken stuff when you can get like negative, 400 life attunement. But that was kind of in my head when I was thinking about that. Again, some of this fits into, I'll get to you in a minute. Some of this gets into the kind of looking at the stereotype of the necromancer type death mage, and I think some of that is I push some of like what I envision that as being. If you look at other games and just in general necromancer, a lot of times the guys who don't like hanging out with people and they're solo, and that's another one of those places where you probably need to take a step back on trying to force roll onto you and make you fit into the stereotype death mage of the guy that goes out and solos and is super powerful and, you know, cheats death or whatever. Because that's another one of those things in terms of healing is death is the one that to really be effective, you gotta keep your health low. You gotta have a high health and then keep your health low because you get that extra big bonus that, for being close to death. So you're even, not only are you tough to heal, but you really need healing occasionally. So yeah, so that's one that I've already looked at, and actually, I mean, I've gone and poked around with it to make like life tap and some other things and not be so death related. The lich ring will probably stay where it is, just because that's kind of a choice and not, you know, people can be death mage. You can always take off the lich ring at any time. So, but in terms of how much tap soul reduces, that's one that's going to probably be lessened in terms of the life attunement hit. And for those who don't play death magic much, that's kind of the thing is with death magic is there's a lot of stuff that makes it so you're generally going to have be really hard to heal because you're going to have a low life attunement, like it's in negative 200 life attunement or whatever, and it, you know, that just makes you really hard to heal. Life spells, you know, negative life attunement when you're casting on them makes the healing much less.
Yeah, so it's just hard to do it in group.
Yeah, and again, that's mostly by design, but again, I think that's a little bit too much forcing stereotypes on this. Definitely need to tone that down a little bit. Let's see, so that was item bullet point number 2. We didn't really talk about the action skills much, but pronged weapons, that's one that again, we already talked about this a couple times. I think start putting it on all 3 charts, even though it's such a tiny thing.
Super, I didn't realize it was that impactful.
And it's not. I didn't do a check last time, but I meant to go and check to see. But that's another one that, again, if you were using that, it is, you got screwed here recently. The same thing that hurt the archers hurt pronged weapons because of the low percentage damage with multiple small hits. Now will do far less. So it definitely needs some love, especially since it's kind of aimed at a high tier player, and they'll just get slaughtered with it right now. Player-made dungeon encounters. So this is one that's been popular, although it's been a little buggy, and again, we still have the last one. We're going to get at least one more patch out that fix the elf rooms, the new rise rooms. But again, I think players have like this. I look and see, and people are doing it a lot. And again, it's for those who don't know, the design for it is that it's less rewarding than actually going to one of our main adventures. Just because, again, we know you guys are going to talk about min-max, and that's like the standard thing is the room, space, room, of encounter, just so you can run through there and you never have to wait for respawns or anything like that. So, but I think overall they've been fairly well received. There's going to be some more stuff coming up. At least one person in this room has a deco spawner that spawns liches that I put in for testing and forgot to propagate out the other stuff. He shouldn't have sold that to you, by the way. They should give you your money back. But anyways, that's one that's going to be put in there as well. That'll be used so players can continue to add more flavor, even though the deco spawner is a difference for those who haven't heard about them. It basically spawns a full power creature, but it doesn't have any looter rewards with it. So that's one of those, and that's mainly because we know you guys can engineer a room where you could set it up so the creatures are never going to hurt you. You'll be able to hurt them. So we want to make sure you guys don't have an incentive to do that. And that's also why, in case people hadn't paid attention or didn't know about it, the dungeon encounter rooms cannot have deco added to them. Again, if you haven't heard why, that's mainly because we know you guys could design your perfect little maze of crack where you can easily avoid getting hit at all times, but still have a way the creature can pack to you. Again, apologies for that not getting as far along as I wanted it. That's one of those things I want to improve a lot on. The big thing, I guess a lot of people probably already know, is the tier loot. Once you get up to about tier 3 or 4 in each type, the tier 5 and 6 loot tends to be the same as the tier 4 loot. So again, several places where it needs some love, and we'll definitely get to before the end of the year. You guys have any comments on things?
Just the encounter rooms. A lot of people ask me questions all the time, and I'm really not making up when I say I don't know what Chris is
Yeah, I think a lot of the dungeons is sort of a good sort of proof of concept, a lot of good initial implementation. But we need to find a way to make it be unique in where it sits, and so a lot of it is you know, why do I go to the dungeons versus why do I go adventuring, and how do we kind of cross-pollinate on that? So, you know, I think a lot of the basics are in there, and we need to look at sort of resource-wise, you know, what kind of goes back and forth, and how to incentivize back and forth on that. So, you know, I thought a lot about, you know, dungeon creation, things like this. So I think, you know, trying to figure out what we can do with the current tech. But a lot of good stuff is there. Just need to sort of get the essences and the roots right, and try to figure out, you know, why we put stuff in there versus, you know, vice versa. And that's the thing is, you know, we can make it to where you're getting something out of there. It just can't be, you know, monetarily valuable. So, you know, we want to make sure that people's time spent on that killing things is rewarded somehow. It's just difficult for it to be, you know, something that's open. So we're certainly working on that, trying to figure out ways to have the dungeon encounters kind of set more in the sort of games.
Yeah, I think it's also one of the things I always look for, and I've been trying to add wherever possible, is just things that we can give creatures so that you find loot that feels valuable. And that's one of those, again, we were talking yesterday about having the essences, you know, being able to craft them into poisons, which I actually started this morning, by the way. But yeah, having essences, making that something you actually drop where even, you know, it's not just a rusty spoon, it's at least a rusty spoon and an essence of something or another. So, in that sense, I think it's been very successful. I think the start of it is very successful. It just needs a lot more polish and probably somebody to look at it full time. Somebody like Travis, who has got time.
Looking at
Helping with
essences.
the polishing on dungeons, encounter dungeons. It is a lot of tedious work. That's one of those things I've mentioned to a few people in here that I'm probably going to start looking for some help from our junior college people, because we have a couple junior college people, which is actually where Wizard Smoke came from, was ACC, the programming group there, and he's freaking amazing. If I can find someone half as good there as him, but finding somebody who wants to get their foot in the door for game, because a lot of stuff you've got to have some experience.
I will
before you
send
get
you
to
the
anybody.
resume as somebody that would love to take that test.
Awesome. That is one of those things we found also is as much as we love hiring community people, we hate getting them in too much into the guts of things, because what we find is they immediately get poisoned and decide that they hate the game after working on it, which is kind of one of those things, that's one of those rules for game stuff in general. I think far less for our game at least. But any game you make by the time it's done that you hate, it's kind of one of the rules of the entire games industry. There's very few games that people have made where at the end of it they're just like, I can't wait to go home and play water. I think that again, just because we developed ours a little differently, I think it's much closer to being something you like. End of the day, people want to just go and play games. Somebody, Bucker?
Yeah, in the player-made dungeons, I'm really hopeful that we can get the destroyable walls that we can break through, because then we can kind of segment off different areas and have surprise areas, illusionary walls and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's
all that
one.
sort of stuff as additional dungeon pieces.
Yeah, and secret doors are one that I think we didn't have, and I don't know why we don't have them. You guys should totally have ways you can do secret doors and have those kind of things. That only came up as something that's like, oh my God, why don't we have that when we were talking about book stuff and what we're going to give you. That's one of the things that came up was the bookshelf, that we can have a wall section, you know, a room like a bookshelf that you can open up is one of the things we give you. That's a bookshelf secret door, so. Yeah, absolutely need to get some more of that stuff in there, and definitely necessary for anybody's considered anywhere near done. Why are you pointing? Oh, yes.
One of the things that I know as far as the new skills and spells I'd like to see looked at is the idea of more combos, because I love combos.
I agree with you. Again, some of that is just the other stuff that goes along with it, the VFX. Daniel's actually been pretty receptive. You heard him yesterday. He's decided his favorite things to make are animations, #1, and VFX are #2 on his list of things. Awesome. He actually did some VFX here for like solar flare and stuff like that. And he cranks them out pretty quick. So that's the good news is he has been doing some stuff really quick for us when we need it. So now we know we can say, well, it only took 2 hours to do that last one. So I don't want to hear that excuse, man. I want 4 a day. Give me 4 combo effects a day. Because honestly, done it on stream before, the time to set up a combo is, now that I've done it so many times for setting up skills, it's really, once I have the idea in my head and I know what I'm gonna do, it's, an hour of work frequently, sometimes less. It's not a huge chunk of time, so. Maybe I'll do, as I look for these streams, maybe one of these morning streams, that probably nobody in this room can watch because why would they get up that early? But I'll just sit down and try to crank out like 8 combos in a stream.
Travis, I didn't say that.
No, you can watch, yeah.
Yeah, I'll watch.
You're on skeggy time.
Yeah, it's Katie time's up. Next.
Who is on deco services in dungeons?
Me? Travis?
It depends who made the room.
Yeah. You can
Who
tell.
wants the list?
If it has a good deco surface, then he did it. If it has a bad one,
No,
Yeah.
that's not necessarily, I know I broke some green ones, so that's not necessarily true.
Who wants the list?
give the list.
Why don't you just, no, you could just go to my dungeon, because everywhere there isn't deco is broken. Because if it doesn't have a fish on the wall, it doesn't work.
I had an ongoing list, but I'm sure what I know of, there's more out there than I know of.
Yeah, some of them are intentionally made so they don't take decos just because like the hallways get too cramped and stuff.
No, we understand those. Those are not
Yeah.
the.
No, we're not
Okay.
talking about those.
Google Doc, we'll talk later.
Okay.
Yeah, get Google Doc set up for them and we can get through it. Those go pretty quick. It's really all we have to do is take usually we just have to take a polygon, put it, align it with the wall and space for much of the put decos.
Yeah, the rooms with the brick surfaces where the bricks are actually modeled, those are a nightmare. Like you just have to choose, like how far into the bricks do you want to put stuff?
Right.
Versus now there's a brick through your painting versus now you get a budget that's floating because it doesn't do enough. We'll just have to play with it.
Well, a lot of it is wall surfaces that just flat won't take deco.
Or like
And I made them.
the crab ones, your trophies float like this far from the freaking wall. It looks like your fish are
It
floating
needs to be
all.
pushed back.
Is that your fault?
That was probably not my fault because I just don't put decos on the wall sometimes. That's
Well, I
probably him.
do, she does.
So I think it's just a bit
But
cramped.
yeah, so it's either
Oh.
floating away or you can't put it on.
Yeah, and those go pretty quick, and that's one
Yeah,
again.
they aren't hard to fix, it's just,
Yeah, it's,
If you
Again,
can
we've
fix it,
got-
I love you.
Google Doc, we'll get you.
this again is one of those things. Is why I was saying I'm looking for some super junior guys who can just come in and do some rough work because it is time consuming, but it is super easy. And I'll probably find. I know I'll find somebody. I've got a neighbor actually that I'm going to use if I can't find anybody else.
anything in the game, whether it's in your house or your lot or a dungeon room especially, that you can put a deco on, somebody has gone and put polygons that are only used for that, like for that. So you have a wall and a shelf and then a wall and a shelf. Somebody had to make this one and then this one that went all the way across the room and then this one that went all the way across the room and then this one that went all the way across the room. So every rail you put stuff on, somebody had to take a strip and flat strip and
Oh, I can do that.
It's super easy, it's just like you said, time consuming, but yeah, give me a list and
Yeah, I know there's some like that I know I just kind of punted on that I could have done a better job of, like I did the Ravensmore sewer room, like that bottom lit room down there, which has got like a ton of gaps in it. Where I got the floor pretty good, but then like the walls, it's like, oh,
Yeah, the
all
walls
these
are really
curved
bad.
crap everywhere. What am I supposed to do with that? So those need some love, and again, it's easy, but it's time consuming. So but yes, we can definitely get those. And another thing I would love to add for Dungeoneer type people is again, we added Sleuth. It's kind of a debug feature for you guys. We have, as he mentioned, there's actually surfaces there that when we're editing, when we're working on that stuff, we just see the surfaces there and they're colored translucent, and we see them there so we can tell where they are. You guys can't see where those are. I would love to give you guys a key while you're in the dungeon where you can hit it, and it'll show you all the legal deco surfaces. So instead of you guys doing this, like,
That would be great.
yeah, the crappy, like, let me try, nope.
So then we don't
You
know
like
if the item is booked or if the room is booked. That's the
Yeah,
problem.
because you gotta
Yes.
try more than one thing.
Yeah. I put that on my list real quick here. Why don't you guys talk for a second?
I mean, you almost want a debug mode or something, like
Yeah.
in dungeons, you know, it's almost more important in dungeons because of all the connections and like pollution and stuff.
Wireframe kind of.
Yeah, so some sort of way, since you already have this sort of editor mode, you kind of have these debug editor mode. So it's easier to get bugs back.
Speaking of new combos, I'd like to see, there's one tree where all the combos work within the tree with blades.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's really cool, it's really fun, but it's like, I don't necessarily the blades, it's more like interaction within the tree.
Yeah, and that was one of those things, we kind of did a lot of them right off the bat. We did them in the trees that were very filled out, which really was fire depth and blades kind of have the most stuff. And then some of the others went in, but then of course we kind of get to the point of like, whose time can I get to do the VFX and the animations and just trying to verify.
Yeah, animation.
But those are fun, I like those. More
Yep.
like that.
Okay, go ahead, Mary.
You're on.
Marquis.
Oh my God, it's not marquee.
Eric,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
We've talked about hidden doors and false doors and all that for dungeons. The one thing that I need that I don't have is a a regular door for my dungeon rooms, not the cave rooms, but the other rooms.
It all depends on how the room was set up. They're supposed to, many of them have just empty hallways. Because how those things work is we basically have the geometry and then we can set, here's a connection point. And then at the connection point, we can say, here's the thing that is there and here's the thing that is there when something gets removed. And so all those could be set up where they have a door, you know, or a wall or whatever, and then we hook up a hallway that puts a door in there. Maybe that's when we need to set up some,
What about a flag when you're placing the room? Like a flag when you're placing the room to say a door there or not?
yeah, again, a lot of that comes down to the ease of how difficult it is on the data side to figure things out. There's also, I'm trying to think what the best way is going to be to handle that. 'Cause we've talked about it before in terms of trying to figure out the rooms, that we don't want to make a bazillion combos of rooms. Hey, here's a room with 6 doors in it or whatever, and I'll just make all the combos of whether it has or not. So really what we want is kind of the connection pieces. Generally, we'll have a hallway connection piece that'll basically place a door there, so it knows when it gets connected to the thing. Part of the problem with that is it's really easy that we can do this hallway piece has a connection on each end, and on each end it has if it's not connected, it has a stone wall. If it is connected, it has a door. Except we kind of started off with this mixed set of data where a lot of rooms have door type stuff, and then like others have, but we can get it done, and we may have to adjust some of the stuff there. So you may suddenly find that some things have doors, don't have doors.
Deco door frame.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and then you can add all the doors at once.
Otherwise,
Yeah,
with the hallway thing, there's a section in my dungeon where there's like 50 hallways attached.
Yeah, and so that's
that'd
one.
be 50 doors they'd have to go through.
So again, the thing I'm talking about is using existing tech and trying to figure out how we should have done with existing tech. We probably need to go back and adjust. But adding the deco door, there's ways we can make connections. We will need some more tech in there. That right now, when you have connections are a single socket. You know, one connects to the other and then nothing else happens. Really, probably what we need is we need to have one that we can also flag can take door. So you can then place a door and also connect it to that connection. It's just one of those things, the way the interface was set up. It's not going to be super easy, but it's probably not more than a couple days work to make that happen so that you can go to any place where there's a connection. We just have to flag whether or not it can take a door, and they can go, hook the door.
Well, we can look into like a room divider that has a door in it also.
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
like this.
yeah.
It might not be airtight, because our hallway profiles are different, so we might have to make like a marble hallway door and stone, but we can look into it. Some kind of, and that goes, when we make that, we'll make the breakable wall.
And if you could make the door alternatively just a spacer arch or something, so when you're linking pieces together to fit together, you can put a non-door spacer that's the same length.
Next.
Lock clips are not staying locked and swapping out. The lock clips are not staying locked and swapping out.
Did you confirm that is still happening?
Yeah, I checked it.
Yes.
I can show
You
it
may
to
have
you.
to stick there, Linda.
So, yeah. Yeah, there's been a bunch of those bugs, and again, that's when they get marked, and I thought they were fixed, but I'll reopen the bug on it. That is one that, there's a lot of these states that, I know it seems like it should be simple, but there's so many different state things going on, and mouse, and that's another one of those things people are like, I want to reassign my mouse buttons, and no, you cannot reassign your mouse buttons to different stuff. If you've got more than 2 mouse buttons and a wheel, you can assign the other ones to whatever you want to, but there's 2 mouse buttons, because again, they have so many different context issues going on, that we really just can't let you assign those things.
I'll
All right.
just have to sneak out and head back down south, because it's 2 o'clock.
All right, oh, it is 2 o'clock, yeah.
Did
Oh, we got late
you
start,
have
so.
any questions for me specifically, so I don't have any?
We only got page 1, let's see, backslide, leaderboards, crafting, masteries, new creature, top tier, blue integration, more balance, episode 2, yeah, that's right, not really stuff, we'll talk for you.
Okay.
Beat it,
Send me the list of the stuff I need to do.
I'm making the list, locked, lists.
Do we have a list cut out that we can just like talk in?
Oh, just get it to me.
Thank you for talking to us. He needs an action
Thanks,
figure.
Liz.
Yeah,
List action figure.
Yeah.
we absolutely need a list action figure.
That line again?
Take care, Travis.
Yes, thank you for talking to us.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Good talking to you.
So much for that.
Be safe.
All right, so let me try and get through these lists, and then we can answer a few more questions, and again, we got a little bit of a late start here due to Cajun food taking longer than Italian food. I think this is supposed to go until 2:30?
Yeah.
2:30, okay, so we'll keep talking here for a while, and then we'll take a break before Future of Shroud, where I know I'm gonna get bombarded with questions, because you guys haven't asked a single question about any business change stuff, so. Let's see, so that was player-made dungeon counter, so leaderboards, lots of stuff leaderboards, and again, this is one of those things where the system set up is pretty automated, but we need to do a little cleanup so we can do it faster, because that's my dream, is that we can just have dozens of these things going on. These things all work through a pretty clean system in terms of usually work on a nightly query where they go and they mine our own data. You guys have data API, but obviously we have a lot more data than what we share with you. And it goes and mines on that stuff. So we've got a pretty clean system that doesn't really bog down and should handle, any number of players and any number of leaderboards pretty well. We just haven't made the time. I still have it on my list of things, of course. I still want to get the most important one, the pedometer. I want to get who has walked the most in-game on any given week. It's the most important thing to me. Or crafted scrolls.
What all we got on?
Time played.
Time played would be, yeah, I'm not sure we don't expose that. That's
Already
one of
time
the
played.
things we have.
Sitting down on a lot is playing? Or not?
Last will be up there.
That's why I think the steps is good, it's an active counter.
Yeah, it's an active counter. Yeah, it's a little tougher. Then you got to put a stat penny on your keyboard or something.
No, you click the plus sign on the keyboard that auto runs.
I know that. But you gotta turn.
No, you don't. Just run into a wall.
I would say you have the basic translate, sort of track.
Yeah, but leaderboards again was a little bit of a step towards achievements and trying to go down that same vein of getting people ways that they can be in the spotlight. But again, that has been not used as much as we want. We've got a few of them in there right now, but there's a lot more that we want in there. And I want to get more fun ones in there than what we have. Kind of one of those things of the dream is that everybody can be famous for 15 minutes type thing, that everybody can have some leaderboard that they can be at the top of the chart on.
It's a pretty flexible system, so I think it needs to have other stuff moving forward.
Yeah. Let's see, backslot item stats. And I think I gave the story on this yesterday that was pretty long-winded, but basically Richard's to blame because he made us have the shroud with stats, so then therefore everything must have stats for us and everybody will wear a shroud is kind of the short version. But yeah, that's been good. And again, we mentioned, we talked a little bit about probably going to add ring slots, which adding another ring, a second ring slot is trivial, really hard because we got to update the UI, and we suck at UI as you guys know. Let's see, crafting masteries, grand master, enchantments, masterworks. Again, that's stuff we talked a lot about yesterday. I don't want to spend too much time since we're kind of up against it a little bit.
Yeah, I think both of those are just sort of ways that we've extended the character power, both of those being more stats on the back slot, higher tier of stats for masters, for grandmaster stuff, so, all this stuff has a prepared purpose of too, it's sort of, extending the runway, adding a little bit of power here and there, so, a lot of these are sort of, as we readdress the systems, each time we add something, you guys get a little bit more power, we try to be cautious of that, but those are two things that explicitly kind of add some more stats, so.
I've noticed that after these crafting masters and grandmaster enchantment stuff, that there's a whole new tier of crafted equipment rolling out where I got a picture today where one of the guys in my guild has over 300 dex and over 100 strength and intelligence just from his gear loadout. And
yeah, and that's one of those things.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier of, even if I got everything perfectly balanced, it's not going to stay perfectly balanced because we need to keep adding more stuff for you, and you guys are always pushing the limits. That's one of those things that like that, that unbalanced things a little bit, and I've got to go back and nudge things in the right direction.
Light tiger.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's one of those examples of stuff of, we haven't added much power like this, in a long time, and that's why I have to be cautious with it, because this is the first time we've extended it, and we've barely extended it. I really want to extend it more steps than this, and you sort of see the repercussions of that. So we have to make sure, figure out what that means from a difficulty perspective, but then, make it to where, everyone can kind of participate. So certainly, people specialize like crazy, so every tiny little thing you add, they stack it in, the most specialized way possible.
Yeah, but especially with masteries and enchantments, that affects every piece of clothing, so it's sort of multiplicative.
Yep. New creatures, we talked a little bit about those, the top tier tameables and young dragons, but yeah, that's one of those things going forward, trying to make sure that things have more unique aspects to them, and it's not just fighting the same thing, doing the same effects, and all we're doing is changing hit points and stuff like that. So that's, again, I think I mentioned earlier, that's one of the things last night is I woke up this morning at my usual time, and got on, and after publishing the build and getting all that stuff going, I went and cleaned up the dragons, got the dragon resistance stuff set up. I'm looking at changing their weapon attacks, but again, trying to make sure. From talking to you guys, that's one of the things that's made it much more clear is we need to go back and take a pass at making all the older stuff more interesting, because right now it is pretty boring, which is probably what Jack is about to ask about.
Would you like me to go through it right now?
You can go ahead and go through it.
So, as far as AI for monsters, it's extremely limited all the way up through the high tier zones. Essentially, players are using the same tactics. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that you said that you've wanted a diversity of builds. As far as players, one of the things that could possibly create a neat necessity for diversity of the builds is changing which skills are used at different tiers. So a tier 1 scene, monsters would not use any skills. Tier 2, tier 1 skills. Tier 3, so it's essentially the skulls would be one level below the actual tier of skills until you get to tier 6+ where they're using multiple skill trees. And so if you think about, like, say, the elves in Virtus Pass, why are they using fire? Majority of mobs use either fire or death magic.
Yeah.
And if you start diversifying what kind of skills mobs use, as far as what skill tree they're actually pulling from, as far as the monster type, you can actually create a change in tactics required by the player.
Yep.
And,
I say to a large extent that the creatures do that. It's just the problem is that a lot of times the fire to death are the only ones you notice, because if creatures do anything other than attack you, then you're not necessarily going to notice. But certainly, we basically take each one of the races, the humanoid races, and there is sort of 3 sort of sub things for that. But one thing to understand though, creatures don't operate like players.
well, I'm aware of that, but it's one where, okay, if the guy's got a shield and he's in a tier 4 scene, it's the only skill he realistically uses is a shield bash. There's no double thrust, there's no rend that's really applied very frequently. And so you end up with very limited AI and very limited skill set. So it's like everybody ends up using the same tactics. I mean, how many times can you watch on video Ring of Fire and a meteor storm to kill everything in a row? And the technique that's been used to increase monster difficulty, it has been essentially, okay, we're going to dump up their resist or jump up their resist as well as give them 1,000 extra hit points. That's been the protocol essentially for making monsters tougher.
And so trying to change some of that, one of the challenges with the AE effect spells, those are ones that are tough because, you know, any half-intelligent person's going to be like, he has cast a Ring of Fire. Here, I will step out of the Ring of Fire and I will move over here. For creatures, it gets a lot more difficult than that, and as soon as we start having them try to dodge like those AEs, then you know, now I can herd the guys, now I can really just move them around wherever I want to. But there's a number of things that are going in and have already gone in that we just haven't put back, you know, used on the creatures. Again, I mentioned like Roots earlier is another one that's actually good. Teleports and Summons is another one that's good. These are things that are basically aimed at getting around those things.
Oh yeah, well, if a tier 5 mob starts summoning a fire elemental as well, or a water elemental, or a lich to also facilitate their attacks, if they're using magic or if they're doing something else, it creates a much more difficult scenario for players to actually engage in.
Yeah. And yeah, we're working on some of those things. Again, as I mentioned, a lot of the problem is we did 90% of the creatures, and then we've been doing little, you know, a single cool creature and a single cool creature and a single cool creature. But 90% of the creatures in the world, those old creatures that just need a lot of love. They need to go back in and updating their skills, not just like going and adding some things to their skill set is really a lot of what's needed. And what you were saying is like, yeah, they're all magic. You know, I could go back and swap a bunch of those guys to Lightning. I could make 2 versions of them so that there's a Lightning Mage and another Mage, and I could make add in the ring stuff, because again, that's something that's already there. And this morning I went back and hit the dragons just because that's one of those that came up that was super obvious. But it's not a huge amount of work, and again, that's what I was saying is talking to you guys to make me remember some of these things, which is why I always try to make notes on those things. But I've forgotten how bad some of those are compared to some of the newer, more interesting things. I want to see him talk into his follow.
I'm sorry. I don't mean. No, what I was thinking was that if Ring of Fire and Meteor Shower is such a good tactic, wouldn't the enemies pick up on that?
You mean that they would do Ring of Fire?
Yeah.
So if you notice,
some of the satyrs.
The elite,
yes,
the elite skeleton mages will occasionally cast a Ring of Fire.
But that's such a good tactic.
And that's something that,
pick up on that.
like I said, if you go to the new Tartarus stuff, I've realized I've been making my new creatures cooler, but I haven't gone back to update the old ones to make them, anything other than I'm going to punch you or I'm going to hit you with the ring or hit you with the fireball.
Right.
And that's for those guys. I was really going through again. When I've been making these guys, I make those guys for that maze, trying to figure out what they want to do in that maze, which is why having teleporter, having a ring of fire that basically occupies the space of the size of one of those maze things, and then the guys coming up behind you, that type of stuff. So I'm trying to think through those things, but I think those guys show that we can do that, and that the tech is there and it works. I just need to make time on my schedule to spend a day, and it's really not more than a day or two, probably going back and making some of the tier.
And Chris, I am fully aware this is actually going through every single scene and redoing every.
So fortunately, we reuse a lot of those creatures, but there's probably 500-ish creature variants.
Yes.
To go and touch, but a lot of them they can be bulk touched or whatever. Yeah, because you think about all the different tier creatures, and many of the types have there's a warrior type and a range type and a caster type, and then sometimes like a berserker type, and you got tier 1 through whatever.
Yeah.
So 500 is probably a bit high, but it's it's a couple hundred at least variations once you get all the different creature types, and then sometimes there's like obsidian versions of the same thing. So, but a lot of it can be bulk, and again, this is something I've done on stream, so people shouldn't you know, seeing that it only takes me a few minutes to go through and do these things. I just need to make time to go and spend 5 minutes on a creature, and unfortunately that 5 minutes is times that 200, 300, 400, whatever. So it still takes some time, even though it's really quick. So many of our jobs, it's not that the stuff is hard or takes a long time, it's just a multiplication problem.
Then bugs.
Yeah. And bugs. Is that it? I hear you.
Pretty much.
All right. Yeah, I hear you, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying there. And I am trying to make sure the creatures that we're adding now are better. But yes, there's a lot of suckage left over. I think it's no secret that I mentioned it. Like, I'm looking forward to episode 2 so we can do things right. That's another one of those things so that I hope we can do right in episode 2 and make creatures actually meaningful. There was a time when we did this, and that's basically, I kind of got probably the same point you're at. Like, these creatures are all boring. It was actually a while back when we did the troll. It's like, I don't want to just do a model and then add an attack and dump. Let's talk about how you're going to fight him and make sure there's some strategy to fight and make sure he's got a couple of interesting things he does. We did do a few of those things like the troll and the demon, a few others that have some ways to, to battle him. But yeah, it needs to be propagated back to all the more simple creatures and stuff you fight 95% of the time.
Yes.
So, agreed, we suck. We'll do better. All right, if I can get that thing to go away that's covering up the bottom line there. New seasonal bosses, Pumpkinhead, Krampus, and NB Angel. Again, we've talked quite a bit about these, and these do have a few new effects to them. And again, those are all things that when we spend time on those guys, we spend some time making those things. But the good news is we can then, expand our tool set. We just need to make sure to propagate our tool set back to the older guys. All right, looks like Star really skimped on this slide, huh? That's not Star. Q4 highlights.
Not even a picture.
Yeah, I know, not even a picture. It's white background. This is pretty much
Is that the
placeholder.
last slide?
Just glad it's not insert text here. So Q4 highlights. So again, you guys have already been talking about a lot of the Q4 highlights that really you're going to see in terms of hopefully getting some more significant polish on the things that people in this room have just been complaining about here. Some of it'll be new stuff, or like I was mentioning, using the essences to craft targeted potions, so you can have elf killing or dragon killing potions or whatever. A lot of it's balance type stuff. Just going in and making sure that Death Shield isn't the way to always kill things, and the creatures can do something in response to Ring of Fire. That they have some strategies in those times when that is not the best way to do it. As much as I would love to make that, everybody's doing that, and you can start getting the same problems again. It's like the Death Mage that, we've got guys that the Death Mage can't kill as soon as we make it. So there's a bunch of creatures that can't be killed by Ring of Fire strategies or Meteor Shower, then, people can have problems. That is one of those things, having AE effects, having creatures that were resistant to AE effects, was actually one of the ones that was on my list. And that's, I have an effect I made that basically when a creature gets hit by an AE, that it buffs the creature around it. It's basically if creatures get hit all in an area, they all buff the creatures around it. So basically anything that's hitting lots of creatures ends up turning them all into a frenzied mob. This is, again, I was working on that, and I got that working for, when I was working on the Spider Queen, that was going to be one of my next mob encounters, but that was one that I was actually looking exactly at Meteor Shower, trying to, make something that is, the best strategy is not just to hit them with Meteor Shower, because it's going to make them basically all turn into a frenzied mob. But anyway, so lots of balance highlights. The Starpit Phase 1 Lua integration on here, for those, again, who haven't heard me talk about that, that's basically going to be exposing a in-game way to have a command line to Lua. It's really just going to be through the chat stuff, but there'll be a Lua output window. But really, this is just so you guys can query stats, kind of the super basic stuff. And that is one of the things in terms of combat that you guys really want. And I've heard from both you guys and the CinCon guys is there's a lot of stuff that is, we get bug reports, but really it's because you guys don't understand what you've seen. You don't have all the information, so it looks like a bug to you. So this is going to be one way we can expose a lot more information to you. We're going to have ways that you can make your own character sheet type stuff will be phase 2. Q4 we're hoping to get phase 1, which is really going to be just, you'll have a way you can load Lua file, run Lua stuff, and we'll have a bunch of different things you can query so you can check stats by name and your stats by number. So you can actually access a lot of those things you can't currently access that, like I've shown off on a stream before. I've got like a dev key where I can hit it and it shows like, here's every stat and everything applied to the character. So you guys can go make a cleaner version of that in time. The other thing is lots of stuff. I know a lot of people like to do their combat parsing metrics and that kind of stuff. It'll give you a way you can do that in the command line. And also ways that you can have, again, one of the big things we're going to have is a way that it will be able to, it'll have a function that will be called, if you hook it, that will, when you get a message that basically you did X damage to whatever, that can go into Lua and you can parse that in Lua and you want to, and then output that back to another command or another tab, because there's going to be one more checkbox that will appear that will be the Lua console checkbox. That again will be mostly for debugging stuff, but you guys can use that to just pull that tab off if you want to. You can have your read the combat damage or messages or whatever, do your own stuff. And of course it is going to be a Lua interface. For those who've already started, I heard somebody was buying books on Lua already, trying to get ready for that type stuff. But there's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a very powerful language, and there's a lot of plugins for it, and ways to hook it up to like Google spreadsheets and stuff like that. So that again opens up. There's a lot of different things that opens up. There's ways you can use it to like do curl and stuff like that. If you again only mean something to programmers, but you can then use that to feed data into your own website or whatever if you want to. But again, if you're wondering like how does this help, basically with if we give you just two things, one is here's the thing: when you go to your vendor, it'll dump your vendor items and sale price to Lua that you can now read. You can have that now. Okay, Lua can now take that and dump that into a Google spreadsheet that you can then edit all your stuff on your vendor in a Google spreadsheet, and then have a way that you can take that and insert it back in. And that's really just a couple of things that we have to hook up on our side, and that leaves it to you guys, because we know our UI is not the best, but even if we spent another 10 man years on it, we never have anything that's good for managing like that stuff as a Google spreadsheet, just in terms of usability. So giving you guys ways that you can do things on your own, or you can have ways to dump stuff to your website or whatever metrics you want to track. I've already heard people talking as well about they want to get a Lua script that everybody in their guild runs, so that will dump to their server, their exact location at any time. So you can always just like anytime, here's the window that shows where everybody in your guild is, and they can put messages and like add all their own interface with things. Question?
Yes, on the UI mods. You were talking about adding like a combat block for pets and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
You can get our screen a little crowded. You going to take advantage of widescreens or multi-monitors eventually, so I can move my chat bar and stuff like that over to the side?
Yeah, and that's one of those that comes up a lot, and I mean, we think about it too, because every developer in the known universe uses at least 2 monitors, if not 3 or 4 monitors, or I mean, it just had at one point, like, yeah, it was actually funny, because he had like 4 or 5 monitors, and then he went away for a week, and I had some extra monitors, and I put another table up beside him, and added the monitors to almost complete the circle around, so he had 7 monitors, and of course, when he came back, all right, I'll plug those in too. And then he's sitting there on 7 monitors. So yeah, I mean, developers really like the extra monitors. It can be a little tough. Yeah, having an extra monitor would be good. There's some complexities involved in that when doing stuff, just like in terms of adding, working in full screen and then having a secondary window that's not full screen. And there's a lot of different edge case type stuff that you get into handling with multiple monitors. Now having that spread across the monitor, you should already be able to do that. But who wants a crack in the middle of their screen, basically 2 monitor things? That's pretty lame. Yeah, having pull out stuff that could go into Windows and window mode would be good, but it's one of those things that's a little intimidating. Another thing that comes up that's intimidating with that is how that behaves between different platforms. Can be very, very different. How it behaves in Windows is different than how it behaves in Mac. It's different from how it behaves in Linux. And even stuff like we've had problems with in the past in Unity, although cross-platform, like they still just don't. There's a lot of cases they don't handle. They had for a solid year, they didn't handle full-screen window mode, basically borderless window mode. They didn't handle that properly. We constantly had bugs of people saying, "Get your crap together and fix this stuff." And it's like, we can't. Like Unity broke a year ago, they haven't fixed it. So Some of that is we're at the mercy, but there's ways we can do it. We know we can do it. I think we've just been a little scared to do it because it means we've got to now go test that on Linux. We've got to test it on Mac. The way we have things right now is actually pretty good in that everything is stable enough that we really don't have to do that much testing on Mac and Linux, which is good because Dr. Bob is the only one at the company that actually runs on a Mac. And usually when I'm getting ready to publish a build, I'll verify some, the log reports and everything else, but I don't even try running the Mac client as many people on team. Any Mac users out there? Yeah, okay, that's why. There's actually, the number of Linux users I think might have passed the number of Mac users on there. And that's not because there's more Linux users in the world than Mac users. I don't know what the numbers are, but just because there's fewer Linux games than any other type games out there. So I've actually had a lot of people saying we should advertise heavily to Linux users because we're the only freaking game out there that they can play that actually runs natively. So, almost true. But yeah, so that's really where that comes in, is it's a scary proposition to start adding multi-window stuff. But it is something we want, and as developers, and I totally get it's crowded on there. The other thing is, before we do that, the tasks I've had open and I've complained about and yelled about forever is being able to drag more stuff around, like being able to drag my party member stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody wants that. But I get, I think just people on the team have realized just how awesome and how much that helped. So that's one of those things, if we can't even get that, like why are we even talking about a second window if we can't get it seeing drag stuff over?
The movable health bars after Joaquin comes back from his honeymoon. That's what Star said was on the schedule.
The which?
The movable health bar. As soon as Joaquin comes back from his honeymoon, that's going to be the first task he does, and it's a really easy thing. So we're just waiting for Joaquin to come back from his honeymoon.
It's a really long honeymoon, apparently. Yeah, that's been on my list, but again, that is one that I do let team members push back where, we try to be as high morale as possible, and that's one of those things, not trying to force stuff down people's throats in terms of what they're going to be working on. And that's one that he doesn't think is that valuable. I think it's super valuable, and again, I'll keep pushing for it because before we need to talk about multi-monitor stuff, you gotta get stuff like that taken care of. But that is also the type of stuff that, might be one of those things that suddenly becomes easier once we have Lua to a stage 2 point where you guys can actually do your own UI. You can actually load graphics stuff, because that'll be stage 2, which again is kind of set for Q2 of next year, probably is when that'll be in there. But just like everything else in the project, it'll be, once Lua goes in, getting Lua in, and I've actually done that once in the project before, and it's pretty trivial. It's a little work, then we've got to set up like the folders and how we're going to let you do things. Somebody's leaking. But that part is relatively trivial, and then it's just the continuous hookup of like exposing functions to you so you can do stuff with it. And that's not going to be like we do it once and here it is and you're done. It's going to be another one of those things for every release. Here's another 5 functions to access stuff. Here's another 5 functions to different ways to print stuff. Here's another 5 functions. And it's going to slowly creep out. The UI stuff will probably come on all at once, hopefully around sometime during Q2 next year is my current target. Yes?
Does Portalarian plan on having a repository for all of these enhancements as far as like a community area? Or
we
is this
definitely
just
want to put it. Again, these are things that you guys are going to be making that you can share with other people. That will be, hopefully useful. I'm sure a lot of people will be making their own custom ones if they would want to share, that will be doing cool stuff. But at the very least, we'll have a forum section once it gets live where you guys can start sharing stuff. And this, again, we're not breaking new ground here. There's many other games that use Lua in kind of a similar way. We're trying to pay attention to those and not make the same mistakes.
Yeah, I was just thinking like a Steam Workshop sort of place to drop your stuff.
I was gonna say along the same lines, if you just if we put out some Lua stuff on like GitHub, just linking to our GitHub stuff would probably be pretty cool.
Yep. Yeah, and I expect there to be, like I said, I expect there to be some community ones that keep adding to, and, you know, a guild has their own flavor of it and all that stuff, where step one is go get it up, get it up. Now, of course, a lot of people out there, how many people have used GitHub before? No? All right, well, that's a pretty decent job. That's more than I expect. We got a lot of techie guys to show up and stuff, so. It's a rude point, man.
Ingot molds, can you get them to last longer, like craftable ones possibly?
The in-game what?
Ingot molds.
Oh, ingot molds.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the molds need some way to have kind of a one with more durability on it, so. What about some sort of ways to enhance it? So, certainly I hear what you're saying.
Or repairable.
Yeah, just something where you don't have to use them as a.
Who has the conch shell? All right.
I was gonna ask for a Lua vendor, so that we could sell scripts.
I guess you just copy and paste them into the book and.
The book?
That's one of the things I've looked at in the past. I've actually added Lua to a few games before. That's one of those things, like I've added to like some console games before that I've done, because it's really good for a dev to also be able to debug stuff and like figure things out in the rest of the game. That's one of those things I do. I'm like debating whether or not to have like a command line where you can do /Lua execute this code, you know, and basically paste the code in there so you can do stuff on the command line and stuff. Because that really could be as easy as, you know, /Lua space, you know, print stat 17 whatever, and you know, then it prints out to your Lua console. But anyways, but yeah, we'll definitely have some shared stuff, and it's actually crazy enough to suggest that you could actually have a Lua command to copy that from the script into a file that's in the right place for it too. So again, excited for what you guys can do, and also terribly careful of what you guys can do. So.
Okay, quick one back on the ingot molds and so forth. Can you make a set of heritage prosperity molds? I mean, I hate molds.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't made any, like,
Smithing in,
unlimited version.
PVE, PVP.
Yeah. We certainly can find
Yeah.
But we haven't sort of made, there's kind of separate tools on those. So certainly I see the
What's the
desire to
next
have
panel?
something that's more durable to see that.
Yeah, because I would love the concept.
Yes.
The big one.
So apparently a student has contacted me and asked, since I was here, asking if we could add experience aid, like scrolls or potions for QA, so we can actually test out the things we want us to test out.
Experience, like giving you experience scrolls, because we have that big bonus when you log in. I thought we had that on QA already.
Well,
I think more like 100 million experience.
Yeah, so that way we can actually adjust our XP or our skill level in whatever tree.
Do character templates, like when you log in with your character on the QA server, have them select from a specific set of templates.
Yeah, well, that would be a ton of work. I mean, the way the QA server works is we basically at the start of a release will copy your live data over to QA. But other than that, it's pretty much the same, it's a mirror server for what's on live, so.
Yeah, I think the main thing there is to make sure that it works as close to live as possible, because we've explored ideas of having where, there's this other way to help you guys test, but then you're not really testing the game, so that's why there's this login bonus, since that's a thing you can configure separate QA with that. Now, maybe we need to figure out a way to, add more stuff to that, but effectively, we want to make sure that you're running the same thing, just that there's a way externally that we can give you the, so that's kind of how we do that, but certainly want to give you guys more tools to test it, but make sure it's similar.
Yeah, and the easiest thing is I can go add a couple zeros to the bonus,
Right.
like a bonus on QA. Help you guys get moving along, get like 1 million or 2 million or 10 million or something experience like that.
And then let us raise it to wherever we do it.
Yeah, just, it's in this QA, it's like, whatever, you're playing, we're copying over, or, so it's okay if you break stuff in that sense, so. I just want to make sure that the testing is parallel there.
Beneficial to break stuff.
Yeah.
Speak, see?
I just have one question for this segment. When are we gonna quit all of this holding hands and loving each other and make PvP real PvP? Full-on loot, if you leave town, or if you leave a safe area, or if you leave your POT, you run the risk of being murdered, killed, death, murder, kill, right out there in the middle of wherever, and getting everything that you have own and hold dear and that you just struggled for out there in the mines or out there at the lake or out in the woods. When are we gonna quit all of this holding hands stuff and get down to business?
How about we split the server and you can go live on the other server? We really are trying to increase our player base, and that's one of those things that I know, for at least for some point in UO's lifetime, but I mean, that's the other thing with UO, the reason the whole crazy PvP and holding stuff was there's really very little itemization. That's something that players have a tough time accepting in a more modern MMO.
They've been doing it for 22 years straight.
And if you want to remove all items from the game, we'll gladly, it might be more feasible. But as it is, where players spend weeks and weeks gathering and collecting and building and gear and training the perfect setup, it can be a truly game exiting event to lose all your gear.
On that topic.
Just resources.
When is the guild warfare alliances and faction systems going to ever be on the plate?
So I've had that on next quarter for about a year now. It's not going to be this, or it's not going to be Q4.
Are we talking
sadly,
about guild stuff?
As much as I would love, just because I do think we have. We sat down as a team and talked about it, and I think we do have the right stuff on the Q4 list and stuff we're going to be doing, but it sadly does not involve factions. And I understand there's a lot of people, when I ask how many people PvP, and only like 3 people put up their hands for PvP. I understand a lot of that's people who have good reasons.
How many people PvP in this game or other games?
Well, you end up with, that makes it much more rewarding as far as PvP.
Yes.
Faction system or an actual guild warfare system that works and alliances and things like that.
And how many people would like that?
So that's totally.
Yeah, so how many people would like that versus the current PvP system?
Put your hands and jazz hands up?
Yes.
So PvP, I mean, that's one of those things I totally acknowledge. Not many people PvP because there's not a reason to PvP. There's no rewards for PvP. There's some really bad logic going on that people claim that PvP is its own reward, which is pretty much bullshit in my opinion. It's super destructive. I know at one point early on when we were talking about things, we trying to figure out money models. One of the money models was basically that the game is driven, the money side of the game is driven by PvPers. Because PvP is its own reward, which of course realized very early on would be that idea of people. But the idea, of course, for that was to look at the different types of people. There's PvEers. They actually go out and they generate stuff and they pull stuff into the economy and they find stuff and they bring stuff back. The crafters, they can actually take that stuff in addition to gathering stuff and they generate. Then the PvPers, all they do is destroy. They destroy their gear over and over again. They loot stuff. They consume lots and lots of potions. So they're the guys that you make money off of.
And it helps drive the economy with new equipment that they gotta buy over and over and over.
But let me point out that is not how things ended up. That was kind of the let's just brutalize the PvPers because they gotta be PvP because they love PvP. But that is not how things ended up, and we know that we need to have PvP incentives. But you guys have also all seen, anytime we talk about PvP stuff, it's a very, very divisive topic. As soon as you say anything PvP, 100 people say, like, we're gonna spend like 2 hours working on some PvP shit. Why are you working on PvP shit? You never work on the PvE stuff. See.
May I please tell you a story? Now, I know I heard a bunch of silence. Can I know, but can I tell you a story? All right? Back in 1999, when EA had this grandiose idea to split Felucia into Trammel, or to add Trammel, make a mirror, basically. we all understood in the world at that time why it was happening. We all understood that there were a certain group that did not want to have they didn't want to have that fear factor there. They wanted to be out and go hold hands with each other, run through the world, you know, whatever. But when they did that, they took away a facet of the world that made the world what it was, and that was the adrenaline. All right, even if you weren't a PvPer, even if you were just a crafter going out to harvest resources, there was a constant state of alertness that followed you when you left town. And when it got, you know, reduced down to where all you had to do was just basically walk out of town and skip as you go, then it took something away from the game. And then, of course, everybody followed that. Now, the reason everybody left Felucia to go to Trammel and UO, it wasn't because that everybody wanted to hold hands. It's because they followed the money. Felucia, that is true. It was true. It was true.
That's not true.
I played that, definitely. I just couldn't.
If you stayed in Felucia, you didn't make anything. There was no way for you, the economy died.
That's complete bullshit, because we have an entire guild house in Fell, making money.
See, I understand.
I made a ton of money in Fell.
So as long as we agree that we're not all in the
Right, and we're not, we will never ever have
Welcome to our
100.
world.
Right. So I guess to go back on a little bit of what I started out on a while ago, not necessarily make it full on PvP and full on loot, but make it.
Who's running this thing?
Yeah, that's just what I was.
Y'all have been on break for the last 2 hours.
Anyway, at least for resources, at least for the stuff that you've gone out into the wild and accumulated as far as resources, surely that could be modified to be full on loot.
I think we have a contrasting view that wants to get in here.
Well, I have actually, I want to support what he's saying, but in a limited format. So perhaps, you know, anybody here play Shadow Bane? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you could make part of your realm Shadow Bane-esque, where it is full PvP, full survival mode, full everything, and it's fought for in guild wars, the churches and the towns, and they get something, they get a boon, they get a constant buff that they control, or whatever it is, that would be killer.
And that was the thing I was talking about with the, basically like the obelisk, PvP obelisk, where the towns can fight over.
But now this, you don't have a choice. If you enter this region of the world that is survival mode, you are PvP. Everybody there is PvP.
Yeah.
If they're ever there.
So if you recall, there was a stream when we first started talking about episode 2, that's Richard, of course, was trying to like sell everybody on the snake idea stuff. And I told him that was fine as long as I get a little continent off and down to the right, that the entire continent was PvP, guaranteed to be PvP, and every scene in town that was in it was PvP. So I mean, that's actually kind of one of the things that I pushed for in 1, but trying to understand how best to make that happen. And the big thing is that I've realized more and more just from talking to more and more players is, you know, people aren't going to PvP just for PvP. There's some people who will. I mean, we all know there's like the Anthraxes and the Fizzles and those guys out there who PvP, but of course they also kill you. So, of course they enjoy it. They have their reward. Their reward is they get to kill you 90% of the time. But there needs to be some other rewards, and there needs to be incentives, and there needs to be charts and stuff like that. We have the charts, but we need to have some reasons, some incentives, some rewards. Because again, as I mentioned before, mentioning that earlier money model of PvPers pay for the game because they're the ones that have all negatives and they have to pay to take care of, you know, the gear or whatever. You know, we need to have some positives in there too. That model of just all punishment doesn't work. We've got to have some incentives. We've got to have some factions. You know, people like picking teams. you know, having some raids and having some actual guild type stuff where people in the same guild, you know, just by default can't hurt each other pretty much like they're in a group is something that would make a big difference. But again, it's all stuff that I want, and it's stuff that isn't that hard to do. It is stuff that makes other players scream anytime you mention spending more than, you know, 38 seconds working on a PvP feature, that you should have been working on PvP stuff instead. But it's stuff that's not going to happen in Q4, but I do want it to really happen because I've also said before that's PvP content, like PvE content, like making the quest in episode 1 was more than half the total time, you know, making stuff for the game. It's like making all the crap in that quest, and that's crazy expensive content. PvP content is the cheapest content we can possibly make. And especially with us trying to work through with a small team and trying to keep our content smaller in the world, having the cheapest possible content for you guys is super important to us.
Will we see any PvP gear?
So that's, I'm hoping to get some PvP gear. I mean, there's kind of, it's one of those things, again, whenever I mention PvP specific stuff or I talk about loot that only exists in PvP, again, you guys know what everybody says. We really want a PvP zone for the quest! So it's that type of stuff that I hate forcing it, and as soon as you have something where the best thing in the game is something you want to get in the PvP zone, that people feel like they have to keep it, I'm making them PvP. And whether I agree with that sentiment or not, that is the psychology behind it, how people feel when they feel like, you know, we're spooking on PvEers.
Okay, just one. All right, so, you know, one thing we discussed at some point was the, you know, possible alternative of having an easy switch, because, you know, just like right now, you have things that you commit to inventory, and it is such a pain if you craft and do other things. You know, you got all your crafting rings and stuff, and it's committed to inventory, it's locked in, and you have to go unlock everything and take it out. And it is just a pain, and for somebody that doesn't like clicking mouses, buttons and stuff, it's a freaking nightmare. So if you could make a category that isn't just locked inventory, that is your PvP inventory, that would fix so much that people hate about it, because that way you select what you're going to be able to fight with and use while you're flagged for PvP, but that's all that people can loot. And then when you don't have to have your legendary crafting rings stolen and all this other stuff.
And your stack of 4,000 whatevers.
Yeah, I mean, so it makes it purposeful, and it's, you just flag it, and that, when you're in PvP mode, that's all you can use. You can utilize it. You can only use that food, those potions, whatever it is.
Trying to not ignore history and pay attention to the sins of the past games out there. Speaking of UO, what if that is the case? Then my PvP gear is a bunch of rusty crap and plus 4 stuff that I just destroyed.
Well, that's fine, because that's what you're wearing, and you've got to find it. Because when you flag PvP, you can only use the items that are flagged as PvP.
Yeah, you're gonna lose it. You're gonna lose it.
Yep, I understand that. It's just, it feels to other people, that was one of the big complaints on, a lot of people have on UO PvP is, you know, there's a constant battle of like, here comes the naked guy again. You know, 2 or 3 naked guys jump out of the bushes. And
That was part of it though. That was part of
I mean,
it.
they could be naked now too.
Yeah.
So you're not changing that.
Yeah, and that's their
paradigm at all.
But at least they have to plan ahead, and when you see a bunch of naked guys leaving town, you know what's up.
Right.
Hopefully you know what's up.
Yeah, but the point is this fixes it where it's not such a arduous changeover. And it is, it's a pain. You don't want to forget that you've got something.
You read the rep.
And I'll never forget, I went to Algeria or whatever, and teleported to him, and you don't get a flag if you're teleporting friend scroll into a PvP town.
Really?
Oh, there is no
Oh, that's a
flag.
bug.
It's like, oh my God, I've got 70,000 kodos on me and all this crap. I'm like, trying to get out of there.
To clarify, he's
All
saying.
right, guys, Les has told me to
Please consider
What's that?
it, please.
I think he means you don't get the warning. So you get flagged PvP, you don't get the warning.
Yeah, that's, you should get a flag before you actually
No, you
teleport.
Would all these naked
Well, maybe
guys,
how it is, that's a bug though.
You who are there and with us.
All right, guys, Lance has informed me that I gotta wrap it up.
All right, I need a break.
Yeah, basically, we started late, and Star told us before he left that we're gonna start the next panel about 20 minutes late to begin with, so starting this one late is okay, so we're gonna break till about 30 minutes from now, which is 3:20. So we're gonna be just the 20 minutes behind to catch up with what Doc Stark planned earlier, so.
Yeah, and he just texted me and said he may have to Skype in for this one, so. It's good though, I can Skype and put them on the screen,
Oh, cool.
and then you guys will have them up there.
Here's a question. Has anybody in the audience Skyped Richard Garrett yet? He told us to Skype him all weekend.
Oh, I haven't Skyped him yet.
Well, if you
The
have Skype,
future of soda panel might be one we wanna Skype them both in. Yes.
yeah, if you have Skype,
Yeah.
or Chris, if you want to try to Skype him in on this as well, he told me to tell everybody that what his name was and try to Skype him throughout the whole convention.
Let me see if I can figure out how I'm gonna do this. Do you know what happens to the audio comes going out through this? It's got an HDMI, but. I don't think it's, I guess I can check, hold on. What happens if I beat my speaker?
You can use the sound control panel, and throw it out another input output that goes to the panel. So you can do that.
Not here.
I might be able to actually, yeah.
Yep, not there. How about this?
Yes.
That's got something there, so that may be enough.
That's a little low.